I was halfway through cleaning the gutters when Grace came outside with that weird, fake excited tone she uses when she wants something. "Mark, I did something fun. You're gonna love it." I looked down from the ladder. Her smile was a little too wide, and she had her hands behind her back like she was hiding a birthday present. She handed me a printout. "Plane tickets, hotel reservation, spa package. 4 nights at some fancy beach resort in Florida." "What is this?" I asked, wiping sweat off my forehead. "A surprise getaway. Just the two of us. Oliver and Sophie are already set to stay with your parents." I stared at the paper. It had everything already done: flights, shuttle, oceanfront suite. "You booked this already?" "Yup," she said, rocking on her heels. "We leave Friday." That was 3 days away. No heads up, no discussion. I'm not the spontaneous type. I plan. I check prices. I don't just toss money at a luxury resort. But Grace looked so damn pleased with herself, and for once, the house would be quiet. "Why the sudden trip?" I asked, watching her closely. "I just thought we needed it," she said. "Things have been busy. I wanted us to have some time together. No kids, no chores, no distractions." "Quick note. Before we start, how's your day going and where are you joining from?" I nodded, still feeling off about it. "You sure my parents are okay with this?" "Already talked to them. They're excited. The kids are excited. Everything's taken care of." She had that tone again. Cheerleader-level energy, like she was rushing me to get on board before I asked too many questions. I'm not used to Grace handling plans without my input. Usually she wants help choosing between 3 Airbnb listings or what pool temperature is best for relaxing. But this time, she was steering the whole damn ship. Still, it was tempting. We hadn't been away together in a long time. And if she wanted to treat us, why fight it? "All right," I said, folding the paper and tucking it into my pocket. "Let's do it." Grace clapped once and said, "Great. I'll handle everything. You just pack." That night, while I was setting out the garbage, something about the way she said that kept playing in my head. Not the words, her tone. Too sweet, too fast. Like she was trying to sell me something. The next day, she was already packing for both of us, checking into flights, arranging dinner reservations. I let her go on with it, thinking maybe I was overanalyzing. But right before bed, I caught myself staring at my suitcase and wondering, why am I not excited? Still, I zipped it up and set it by the door. We were going. We landed in Tampa around noon. The car Grace arranged picked us up outside baggage claim and drove us straight to the coast. The resort sat right on the beach, tall white building, glass balconies, palm trees swaying like they'd been placed for an ad shoot. Everything smelled like citrus and sunscreen. Grace leaned toward the window, grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. "See? Isn't this perfect?" I nodded. It was definitely high-end, way fancier than the places we usually stayed when we traveled with the kids. I felt underdressed just standing in the marble lobby. Bellhops in white uniforms, people sipping cocktails at noon, some guy in a linen suit holding a tiny dog. Not exactly my scene, but I figured I'd roll with it. At the front desk, while the woman checked our reservation, Grace spun around like she was waiting for someone. And then, like it was rehearsed, 3 women walked through the sliding doors. Karen, Diane, Lisa. Grace lit up like a damn spotlight. I turned and saw them. 3 women I knew mostly from Grace's stories. PDA types with overpriced handbags and perfectly straightened hair. Grace rushed over, hugging all 3 at once like she hadn't seen them in years, even though I was pretty sure she had brunch with 2 of them last weekend. They looked past me like I wasn't even there. Grace looped her arm through mine and turned back to me. "Isn't this fun?" Total surprise. The girls booked the same weekend when I told them about it. I kept my mouth shut. That didn't sound accidental, but I wasn't about to start something in the lobby. Karen raised her glass. "We couldn't let you 2 have all the fun." Diane laughed. "We figured Grace could use some backup keeping you in line." Grace giggled like it was the funniest thing she'd ever heard. I looked at her, but she was too busy smiling at them to notice. I signed the check-in form while Grace whispered something to Lisa and laughed again. The front desk clerk handed us all welcome drinks, some fruity cocktail in a stem glass. I didn't even know what I was drinking. We moved to the lounge area near the bar, where someone brought over a platter of appetizers. Shrimp, little toasts with weird toppings, and something that looked like seaweed rolled in cheese. Grace took charge like she owned the place. She pulled chairs into a circle and sat front and center, legs crossed, voice just a touch louder than everyone else. She was performing, big hand gestures, dramatic stories, fake gasps. The other women lapped it up. I sat off to the side, nursing my drink. No one asked me anything. At one point, I tried to jump in when Lisa mentioned her son applying to college. I said, "Oliver's thinking about mechanical engineering, but we'll see if he sticks with it." Lisa gave a polite smile, then turned back to Diane like I hadn't said anything. Diane launched into a whole story about her nephew and his Ivy League journey. I took another sip of the sugary drink. I hate cocktails like that, too sweet, barely any alcohol. I set it down and checked the time. It wasn't even 3 in the afternoon. Grace glanced over at me and gave a quick wave, like I was some friendly neighbor who happened to be in the same hotel. Karen said, "I'm so glad Grace planned this. Honestly, we needed a reset. Just women supporting women, you know?" Grace nodded, eyes still on her friends. "Exactly. This year's been exhausting." I sat there wondering what exactly had exhausted her. She wasn't the one up at 6 every morning driving the kids to practice. She wasn't the one fixing the damn dishwasher last month or handling taxes. But I didn't say any of that. I just watched her hold court while I played the part of the husband with nothing to contribute. Finally, I stood up. "Gonna check out the room. You coming?" Grace barely looked at me. "In a minute. I'll meet you there." I walked toward the elevators, stomach tight, thinking one thing. This wasn't a couple's getaway. It was her show. I was just part of the background. The room was sleek, modern, cool air, ocean view. I threw my bag on the bed and stood there for a minute, staring out at the water. Grace said she'd be up in a minute. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. I gave up waiting. I headed back down to the lobby bar. They were still there, all 4 of them crowded around a table now, laughing like they'd known each other since grade school. Grace looked like she belonged in a resort ad. Tan dress, gold hoops, wine glass in hand. She saw me coming but didn't wave or make space. I had to drag a chair over myself. "Everything okay in the room?" she asked, barely glancing at me. "It's fine," I said, pulling the chair in. Karen turned to me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Mark's so lucky Grace takes care of everything. I don't know how you do it, honestly." I looked up at her. "Do what exactly?" "You know," she said, laughing. "Just let her run the show. She's got the energy of 10 people. Diane jumped in. "Yeah, Grace really keeps everything running, doesn't she? It must be exhausting for you, Mark." Grace laughed. "Oh, stop. You're making me sound like a tyrant." "But it's true," Lisa said. "Grace basically does everything. You're just along for the ride, right, Mark?" I forced a chuckle, tight in my throat. "I guess I hold the ladder while she climbs." That got a few laughs. Grace looked pleased, not with me, just with the attention. "Mark's always been good at staying in his lane," she said, sipping her wine. I leaned back, heart starting to burn. I didn't realize we had lanes. She shrugged, that smug look creeping onto her face. "Everyone has a role." I tried to pivot the conversation. "How's your daughter doing, Diane? Still in Texas for school?" "Oh, she just transferred back," Diane said, then immediately turned to Grace. "Actually, she saw that post you made about Oliver's Science Award. She was so impressed." Grace lit up. "Wasn't that sweet? I told Mark we should frame it. I was the one who helped Oliver build the damn volcano project from scratch." Grace just posted a picture. "But sure, let's frame it." I stayed quiet for a beat, watching the way they looked at her like she was some kind of queen. I'd seen it before, birthday parties, school events, even just a dinner out. Grace knew how to pull a crowd, and she made sure I stayed on the edge of it. Karen reached over and patted Grace's hand. "You really have it all under control. Some people just manage better, you know?" I said, "You'd be surprised what people manage behind the scenes." They either didn't hear me or pretended not to. Grace waved her hand like she was brushing off a mosquito. "Mark always gets philosophical after one drink." "I'm on my first," I said, staring straight at her. Diane laughed and waved the waiter over. "Another round, please. Mark, you're drinking that fruity thing again, right?" "I'll have a beer." The waiter nodded and disappeared. I felt the air tighten around the table. Nobody asked me another question. They shifted into some story about their spin class instructor and how he once passed out mid-class. I listened without reacting, the way I used to zone out during Grace's reality shows. Eventually, I stood up. "I'm gonna walk the beach." Grace said, "Don't get lost," like she was joking, but there was no warmth in it. I didn't answer. I just turned and walked out of the lobby, the sound of their laughter chasing me to the doors. The night air hit me like a slap, warm, salty, and still. I kicked off my shoes and stepped into the sand. The waves didn't care who was in charge of what. They just rolled in and out, again and again. I walked toward the water, my feet sinking deep, heart pounding, mind locked on one thing. I didn't come here to be Grace's prop. I came back from the beach with sand between my toes and salt on my skin, still trying to shake the feeling that I was tagging along on my own damn vacation. The sun was dipping, that golden hour glow spreading across the lobby as I stepped in. The receptionist waved me over. "Mr. Harris? Your party's keys are ready." She slid a stack of cards across the counter. 5-room keys, neatly labeled. I raised an eyebrow. "All these are on one reservation." "Yes, everything's been charged to the card on file." I looked down. My name, my card. I hadn't added anything besides our room. "You sure this isn't a mistake?" Before the girl could answer, Grace appeared at my side, smooth as ever. "Oh, I asked them to put it all under one account. It's easier to manage." I turned to her. "Easier for who?" "For the group," she said quickly, brushing it off. "I'll sort out reimbursements later. I just didn't want everyone fumbling with payments at the desk." I nodded slowly, the tension creeping up my neck. "Would have been nice to know." She smiled like I was making a fuss over nothing. "It's fine, Mark. You always get so wound up about logistics." She grabbed the keys and started handing them out like party favors. Karen, Diane, Lisa, each one took theirs with a little "thank you" and zero hesitation. Then Grace held out one to me. "Here you go. Room 915. You've got the ocean view." I took it, confused. "Wait, you're not with me?" She held up another key. "I'm bunking with Karen. We thought it'd be fun, late-night wine, girl talk. You know." "No, I don't know," I said flatly. "Wasn't this supposed to be a trip for us?" She blinked like I'd just asked the square root of something. "We're still together. Just not sleeping in the same room. It's only a few nights." I looked at Karen, who was suddenly very interested in her phone. "Grace, why am I finding this out now?" "I didn't think it was a big deal," she said, a little too fast. "It's just sleeping arrangements." Something about how casual she was, how rehearsed, made my stomach twist. I almost said something then, but I could feel everyone watching. Even the damn receptionist had that awkward, "should I be hearing this?" face. I shoved the key in my pocket and walked toward the elevators without another word. Room 915 was nice, I'll give her that. Floor-to-ceiling windows, big king bed, little fruit tray waiting on the desk. It was exactly the kind of room you'd want to share with your wife. I sat down on the edge of the bed and stared out at the water. I could hear people laughing down at the pool, music echoing up from the bar. Everything around me screamed vacation, except I felt like a tenant in someone else's life. Grace had handled every detail: flights, meals, rooms, payments, all of it. And I just followed along, like I didn't need to ask questions. I pulled my wallet out and checked the resort charge on my card. 5 rooms, multiple nights. That wasn't a small bill. And now I was sleeping alone while Grace played roommate with Karen. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. She didn't even hesitate handing me that key, like the decision had already been made weeks ago, like I was the last to know. I closed my eyes and told myself not to overreact. Maybe she just wanted girl time. Maybe it wasn't personal. But deep down, I knew better. This whole trip had nothing to do with us. It was all about her. I stood up, cracked open the mini fridge, and pulled out a beer. I wasn't going anywhere tonight. Might as well get comfortable. The next morning, I got up early and went for a walk before the sun got too high. The beach was quiet, just a few joggers and retirees out with metal detectors. I took my time, thinking maybe some peace and quiet would shake the weird feeling off me. It didn't. Grace didn't text, didn't check in, nothing. Around noon, I passed her by the pool, lounging with Diane and Karen, drink in hand, already mid-laugh. She saw me, gave a quick wave like I was someone she barely knew. I nodded back, kept walking. I killed most of the day reading by the water, trying not to think too hard. But every time I looked around, at couples holding hands, laughing over drinks, I kept wondering what the hell I was doing here. By dinner, I figured maybe things would shift. We had a reservation at one of the resort's nicer restaurants. Grace had picked it out, of course. I got there first. Table for 5. The waiter poured water, handed out menus. Then the rest showed up, Grace leading the way, dressed to impress in a sleek black dress, like she was about to give a keynote speech. She sat across from me, but didn't even make eye contact. So I told him, she said to Diane as she sat down. If you're not going to follow through, don't offer. Right? They all laughed. Lisa slid in next to me, barely noticing me. I tried to speak up. How was the pool today? Karen gave a quick, hot, and turned back to her phone. Grace cut in. Mark's never been a fan of lounging. He always needs a project. Is that true? Lisa asked, grinning. You're one of those guys who can't sit still? I shrugged. I can relax. I just don't like being parked. Lisa leaned in toward Grace. It's wild how much you handle, though. Like everything. You plan the vacations, run the house, manage the kids. Diane added, and look good doing it. Grace smiled, eyes locked on her wine. Well, someone's got to take charge. Mark's a great support system, but we both know I do the heavy lifting. The words hit like a slap. She didn't even flinch saying it. Like she'd rehearsed it. Like this was part of some script she wanted them to hear. I sat back in my chair, silent. If I spoke now, it wouldn't come out clean. The waiter came to take orders. Grace answered for the table, suggesting appetizers, wine pairings, even what Diane might like better. When it was my turn, I just said, burger, medium. The conversation rolled on without me. PDA gossip, Instagram drama, spa appointments. At one point, I tried steering it again. Oliver's been asking about welding classes. He's real hands-on lately. Karen nodded once, eyes glazed. That's cute. Then Lisa turned to Grace and said it, loud and sharp like a dart to the chest. I can't believe you'd let Grace handle everything. She's the one who keeps everything together. I don't know how you do it, Mark. Grace smiled and didn't say a word. Didn't defend me. Didn't even blink. I stared at her. She met my eyes for half a second, then looked back to the group. Like I wasn't there. I finished my food without saying anything else. No one noticed. After dessert, they moved toward the bar for another round. I told them I needed to make a call, but no one asked who. Outside, the air was thick, and the breeze felt like it couldn't decide if it was warm or cold. I walked past the pool, past the empty lounge chairs, down a path that led to a little overlook near the rocks. I stood there, staring at the dark water crashing below, and just let the silence settle in. I wasn't part of this trip. Hell, I wasn't even part of this marriage. I'd been turned into background noise while Grace performed for her friends, playing the role of the put-together woman who had her husband wrapped around her finger. And the worst part? I'd let it happen. No fight. No pushback. Just quiet approval through years of saying, whatever works. Now I stood there, alone with my thoughts, wondering what the hell works even meant anymore. I took out my phone, looked at the lock screen, no messages. I slid it back in my pocket and turned away from the water. It was time to stop pretending I didn't notice. I walked straight through the lobby, past the couples drinking wine and the front bar where Grace was probably still holding court, and stopped at the front desk. The receptionist was the same young woman who checked us in. Her smile flickered when she saw me, like she remembered the awkward key exchange. Good evening, Mr. Harris. Everything okay with the room? Yeah, I said. Just wanted to ask something about the billing. Of course. She clicked a few keys, looked at her screen. You currently have 5 rooms booked under your name. Each one has separate key authorization, but the charges are consolidated under your reservation. What about meals? I asked. Spa services? She scrolled. Yes, sir. Meals, bar tabs, 2 spa appointments, 1 personal training session, and a salon booking from this afternoon. I blinked. Salon. Yes. That was 4. Karen Mitchell. Of course it was. And all that's going to my card. She nodded. Correct. That's the card on file for the entire booking. I took a breath, trying not to let the heat in my face show. Can I get a full printout of everything so far? Absolutely. She stepped into the office behind the counter and came back with a 4-page breakdown. I didn't need to read every line to get the message. This wasn't a getaway. This was a performance Grace had staged, with my name on the ticket and my wallet funding the show. Thousands. We hadn't even hit day 3. I folded the papers, shoved them in my back pocket, and walked out of the lobby before I said something ugly to a stranger. Back in my room, I dropped the packet on the desk and sat down hard on the bed. I rubbed my face with both hands. The number on the bill wasn't even what burned. It was how deliberately she'd done it. Like she'd planned every piece of this and figured I'd never speak up. That's what pissed me off. It wasn't just the money. It was how sure she was I wouldn't say a word. How easy it was for her to look right through me while she played queen bee with her friends. She didn't just push me aside. She made damn sure I paid for it. I looked around the room. Too big, too clean, too empty. The kind of place where someone like Grace should have been unpacking a suitcase next to me. But she was 2 floors down, toasting mojitos with Karen and Lisa like she was still 22 and single. I stood up, paced to the window, then back. I wanted to go down there and call her out. Tell her I wasn't stupid, that I knew exactly what she was doing. But I didn't. Not yet. Not because I was scared of her reaction. Because I knew the second I opened my mouth, I'd blow the whole thing wide open. And I needed to be smarter than that. I picked up the room key off the desk, spun it in my fingers, then set it back down. Let her have her fake fun for a little longer. I already knew what came next. I stayed in my room for another hour, maybe 2. Just pacing. Waiting for something. An apology, a knock, a text that never came. Eventually, I left. Didn't say where I was going. Just took the elevator down, stepped out on the 7th floor where Grace and Karen were staying. I figured I'd knock, tell her we needed to talk. Let her know I wasn't as clueless as she thought. But then I heard her voice through the door. It was cracked open just enough for sound to bleed into the hallway. Probably sulking in his room, she said, laughing. He's always like that when I take the lead. You should have seen his face when I handed him his own room key. Like I told him I was moving out. More laughter followed. Karen's, Diane's, then Lisa's. Wait, Diane said between laughs. You didn't even tell him the sleeping arrangements until you got here? Nope, Grace said, proud. If I had, he would have made it into a whole thing. I just kept it simple, booked what I wanted, handed him the key, and moved on. Lisa chimed in. He seems harmless. Kind of like a house cat. Follows you around, keeps quiet. Grace didn't deny it. He won't make a fuss, she said. He never does. That's what I love about Mark. He's predictable. Safe. I never have to worry about him blowing up. I stood there, frozen, like a statue stuck between 2 versions of reality. The one where I was a husband, a partner, a man with value, and the one where I was Grace's harmless accessory. Their laughter kept going. I could picture her, glass in hand, legs tucked under her like she was at a damn sleepover, making me the punchline. For the same friends who drank on my tab and slept in rooms I paid for. I turned around, slow and quiet, and walked back toward the elevator. I didn't need to hear another word. My face was burning. My fists were clenched, and my jaw felt like it could crack in half from the pressure. She didn't just dismiss me. She mocked me. I took the elevator down and walked straight through the lobby, past the smiling bartender who probably thought I was one of those guys too whipped to complain about anything. Out the doors, into the thick Florida night. I didn't stop walking. The sidewalk was still warm from the day. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't care. I just needed out. Every step I took away from that building, something inside me started cracking loose. Not rage. Not heartbreak. Clarity. Grace didn't plan this trip for us. She planned it for them. For herself. For the image. The bragging rights. And I'd funded it like a loyal idiot, assuming it was about us reconnecting. But it was never about us. It was about control. And the worst part wasn't her lying. It was that she'd spent years training me not to question it. The subtle digs. The way she always had to rephrase things I said at dinner parties. The way she'd grab the check when people were watching, but use my card. Every decision was hers, but the consequences were always mine. She didn't see me as a partner. She saw me as a backdrop. I kept walking, past palm trees and shut down souvenir shops, past the beach access and the all-night gas station lit up like a lighthouse. I could have walked all night. Maybe I did. All I knew was I wasn't going back. Not to that hotel. Not to that version of myself. I pulled out my phone, opened the ride app, and booked a car back to the airport. No suitcase. No note. Let her explain that to her little fan club. The flight home was quiet. No checked bag. No calls. No distractions. I sat in that cramped seat with one thing on my mind, getting my life back. The second I walked through the front door, I knew I wasn't waiting. I dropped my keys, opened my laptop, and logged into the bank. Step 1. Cancel every credit card with her name on it. Every joint account, frozen. I pulled up the travel card she'd been using like Monopoly money and hit cancel. Next, I called my lawyer. I hadn't spoken to him in over a year, not since I updated my will after Sophie was born. His voice came through the speaker like an anchor. "Mark," he said, "what can I do for you?" "I want out," I said. "Divorce. Now." No hesitation. No second guessing. I wasn't interested in therapy or talking it through. I was done being the safe, predictable husband who let his wife walk all over him. He asked the usual questions. Assets, custody, timeline. I laid it out in order. House stays with me. Kids stay with me. I'll work it out with my parents until it's final. I want to protect what's mine. He said, "You sound sure." I've never been more sure of anything. I hung up and took a breath. It felt cold, businesslike. But underneath that, there was this weight starting to lift, like I could finally breathe without someone standing on my chest. Grace wasn't going to change. Not in a week, not in 10 years. That trip didn't wake her up. It confirmed who she really was. She didn't see me. She saw my wallet, my silence, my predictability. She saw me as someone she could use. And now, I was flipping the switch. That afternoon, I set up new accounts under my name only. Called my kids and told them Grandpa was picking them up from school the next few days, just until I sorted things out. No explanations yet. No drama. Then I drafted the message that would hit Grace's email the next morning, clean, direct, no emotion. Subject, effective immediately. Grace, I've returned home. I've canceled all cards under my name. The divorce process is underway. I've spoken to my attorney. Don't come back here. Your belongings are being packed and sent to your brother's house. The kids are staying with me. I'll be in touch through legal channels only. Mark. No goodbye? No, we need to talk. She didn't earn that. Later that night, I sat on the porch with a beer and waited. I knew the moment would come, and when it did, I actually smiled. My phone buzzed, 3 notifications in a row. Transaction declined, $142.95 at Seaside Spa. Transaction declined, $66. 20 at Mariner Bar and Grill. Transaction declined, $980. 00 resort balance. Then silence. No texts. No calls. Just the sound of her world cracking in half in some Ocean View suite 2 states away. I didn't care. Not even a little. Let her sit with it. Let her explain to her friends why the bar tab went dead. Why the spa kicked her out of her appointment. Why the woman who claimed to be in charge suddenly had no access to the life she built off my back. I pictured her face, confused, scrambling, trying to fix it while pretending she wasn't blindsided. But this time, I didn't have to lift a finger. This time, she didn't see it coming. Her first call came around 9 a.m. I let it ring. Then another, 10 minutes later. Then texts. Mark, what's going on? Call me. Is this a joke? The cards aren't working. You need to answer me right now. I didn't respond. I didn't even open the messages. That same afternoon, I met with my lawyer, signed every document, and walked out with the file in my hand. Divorce, filed and in motion. Custody request submitted. Property separation started. It was done. 2 days later, I saw her through the window. She pulled up in her car, alone. No suitcases. Just her, looking around like she expected someone to greet her. She stepped up to the porch, saw the envelope taped to the front door. I watched from the upstairs hallway window, out of view. She stood there frozen as she read it. Grace, your things are already at Ryan's. Keys don't work anymore. Do not knock. All communication goes through legal. Mark. She looked around like maybe I was joking. Maybe there was a camera crew waiting to yell surprise. Then she tried the doorknob anyway. Locked. I didn't move. Her shoulders dropped. She stared at the door a second longer, then stepped back and pulled out her phone. I watched the screen light up. Another call. Ignored. She stood there for a while. Long enough to shift her weight. Long enough to look around the porch, like maybe she could find a way to fix this with a half smile and an apology. Not this time. She finally walked back to the car. No slamming, no yelling. Just confusion. Humiliation. Quiet retreat. I watched the taillights disappear down the street. Then I closed the curtain and walked downstairs. The house was still. No tension, no fake smiles, no loaded silence. I sat down on the couch, stretched my legs out, and exhaled for the first time in years. No more guilt. No more pretending. Just quiet. And God, it felt good.